Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're going to talk about the power of context to heal your being, your body, and your business tonight with Sheila Winter Wallace. Sheila Winter Wallace is a seasoned spiritual healing coach, empowering women to transcend, she says, limitations, guiding them from victimhood to empowerment, pain to peace, and scarcity to abundance. She's got a diverse background in nursing, retail, and energy medicine. Sheila helps primarily women, especially entrepreneurs, rediscover their inner strength and their worth so that they shine a welcome light on the blind spots of their potential, inviting feelings of greater resilience in these chaotic times. Wow, sounds inspiring. Sheila Winter Wallace, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. I've been looking forward to this.
I've been looking forward to this. So tell me, what was your incentive, your passion to move into this healing, coaching, entrepreneurship activity?
I've had a very long life. I've had a good life. I've had some, what would I say, dark nights of the soul. And I've always been interested in helping people. I somehow got into nursing and I loved it. And then I went into cosmetology because I grew up in an entrepreneurial household in Toronto. I grew up in Toronto, and my father was self-employed and my mother ran the business from inside. And I guess I just picked up that bug. And so my last year of nursing, I was actually self-employed. And then I went on to cosmetology, and I owned retail businesses with a partner for 15 years and then for another 6 without the partner. And I actually did some business in the US. And then while I was doing all that, I was looking to heal myself because I wasn't feeling very well a lot of that time. And I met a doctor who directed me in one area, craniosacral area. He sent me to someone who was doing it. And I thought, I'm a nurse, after a couple of years, I thought I could learn how to do this. So I did that. And at the same time, I met someone who developed a body of knowledge called Wealth Systems. And over time, she and I became close and fast friends. And then when I was going through one of my dark nights of the soul, she said, just step into my program room and let's see where we go. And I stepped in, already being a trainer of neurolinguistics, a trainer of hypnosis, advanced craniosacral therapy, and every modality, alternative healing modality in the book that you could consider, things that some people have never even heard of, I had studied. And I was still finding that while I was helping other people, I would be going through my own stuff, and then I'd find myself in a corner. And if somebody handed me a shovel to dig myself out, it was like I was digging myself back in. And I'm sure people who are triggered by a lot of things or anything could relate to that experience. And then I watched my daughter do the same thing, dig herself in when she was having a problem instead of digging herself out. Anyway, long story short, Brian, the context that my friend had basically been through her own dark nights of the soul and discovered, her name is Louise Lebrun, and she founded a body of knowledge called Wealth Systems, working environments as living systems. And it's just shifting my context from normal to there is no normal, and shifting my context of I'm not my body, I'm actually way more than that, and literally practicing it because that's what it takes. My life changed. And I was the person with the chronic back problems. And here I am in my late 70s, no back pain, none of this, no pills, nothing, and living a pretty good life. So I really love to help people. I think women are the ones that are going to change the world. I think they have a different set of circumstances than men, mostly because they've had to learn to be patient. And that's just, if your body is designed to grow a baby, and especially in the days when I was growing, conceiving and growing kids inside, we didn't know what the baby was going to be. So you just did the best you could in the process of getting there, and trusted learn to trust yourself while you were moving through it. So that's basically what I do here is educate people. It's mostly education, not coaching for strategy, coaching for how do you want to live? And then how do you want to live on your own terms so that you are whole, that you are unique, and you're essential to your world. And most women out there don't believe that.
Most women don't think they're unique and they're not essential.
I think at a conscious level, they can, that's the imposter syndrome. They can run that. I think that's true for guys too. I really do. But they have a lot of self-doubt. So it's about being in conversation with these women, not for, as I said, for strategy. It's about actually working around what I would call logical levels of thinking.
Logical what?
Logical levels of thinking.
Logical levels of thinking.
Yeah. So it's really teaching them how to think about thinking and how to think about yourself as a quantum biological human. So these are phrases that are not.
What is a quantum biological human?
A quantum biological human is a human being, a spiritual being who's having an experience in tissue into a physical universe. So how many times have you actually thought, I'm not from here, that I'm actually in this body. I don't like how I'm feeling. Maybe something in my business isn't working. And you make it about the thing that you're focused on and not on the fact that you're actually a creative force. So
you said a couple of things that I'd like to delve into if I could. You said that you and your daughter and some people go down rather than up. What did you mean by that?
Oh, so what I meant by going down is, those times when you've got a problem and somebody says, here, do this. And they give you the shovel. So they hand you the shovel. It's a strategy. And your focus, their intention is to help you dig yourself out. But while you're digging, using the shovel, you're digging yourself further into your mess. In other words, you keep running the same story about how awful it is, how the same patterns keep repeating, how somebody never ever gets it right, and you're always the victim of it. You just keep running that same pattern.
So we too often think of ourselves as the victim?
I think people think themselves as the victim. Mostly you can see it around the world because there's a lot of fault and blame going on. So that's the first thing is.
So we don't take responsibility for our own actions. We just blame other people for what's going wrong with our life.
I think most women end up blaming themselves for not being the nice person that they were taught to. They were actually raised up to be as a nice, be conciliatory, be nice, be a good girl, and don't ever get angry. And it's that fire behind the anger that actually creates.
It's the fire behind the anger that creates?
Yeah.
Really? So you've got to let yourself get angry? Is that what you're teaching people?
Well, okay. What I'm teaching them is to actually put their attention on the body and let it soften. So here are six steps that these are the 6 steps I teach. And
let's wait for the 6 steps for a minute because we got to take a message break and then we'll come back and maybe go through the 6 steps. But let me ask you one other question before we take a message break, if we could. You said that you you use something called cranial something or other. Tell me what that word was, please.
Cranial sacral.
Cranial what?
Cranial sacral therapy.
Cranial sacral therapy. What is that?
It is working with the cerebral spinal fluid in the body to actually get rapport with the body and bring the body into a parasympathetic response so that the body heals itself. It's a hands-on modality, highly non-invasive, useful to have anatomy and physiology learnings, but it is actually being incredible rapport with the body so that people feel safe. And a lot of the work that I do when people have issues and they can't describe it, those issues are often pre-verbal. So things get stored in the body. And so they might come to me at age 55 and they might get on the slab. I'm going to educate them to the context first and set the frames for it. And then I'm going to ask them to get on, my friends all call it the slab. It's a therapy table. And I'm not in the business of therapy. That's the thing. I'm actually just taking what I know and getting into rapport with the body so that people actually start to feel safe. They go into a parasympathetic response or a deeper relaxation response, and the body starts to heal itself. So it's not counter to anything that you would know in medicine. It is what we know in allopathic medicine is good, but it's incomplete. This is actually speaking to the energy that is the information and energy that nobody has words for, that can't talk about it, that actually starts to form things in the body. And so we end up with diagnoses, and the diagnoses are really just what a medical person would, they need to diagnose something so that they can categorize to start creating healing strategies. This goes beyond that. And it's
Sounds
not
fascinating.
It's not instead of, it's beyond it.
We got to take a break for some messages. We're going to come back in 2 minutes with Sheila Winter Wallace. She's a coach, she's an educator, she's a former nurse, and she's a healing coach, empowering women to transcend limitations, guiding them from victimhood to empowerment. It's going to be an interesting conversation tonight. Stay with us, everyone. Back in just 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Sheila Winter Wallace. She's a coach, she's an educator, she's a mentor, she's a facilitator. She's built 4 different businesses since 1975 in nursing, retail, energy medicine, and coaching ministry. She has deeply lived a relational experience with family networks, teams, and business. Sheila knows firsthand what emotional devastation looks like when it comes to the sacred health of being, body, and business. She knows as well the healing power of integrating the energy of that deep pain so that one joyfully emerges into the future of his or her own design. Through it all, she discovered the truth of her strength in the face of epic uncertainty. Sheila is willing to share it all in support of our all well-being and ability to thrive. She knows just how much our sense of self and agency matters. Wow. Sheila Winter Wallace, welcome back to the show. You've talked about the dark night of the soul. You've talked in what you sent me about, this devastation, emotional devastation. Can you share with us what were these dark nights of the soul? What was this emotional devastation that caused you to think through that you needed to have this process that would assist you?
Well, I will start right out by saying that, I grew up in business. I'm not so certain that learning business from your family members is really a great thing. As good, as good or as bad as it gets, because you're modeling. And it becomes rather a mixed up affair. So I had the bug. I became a cosmetologist. I went into a retail business with a partner, and we spent 15 years together. And at some point, she and I went through our own dark nights of the soul, and I bought her out, and I went on in business as my own. At the same time, I decided, because of my connections in Southern California, I decided to build a business there. So I built a business there. I had 18 years of experience. Different wording, different dialogue. I had a lawyer. I had an accountant there. I had all kinds of things, but everything that could have gone wrong for a business that was supposed to open up in probably October of 2002, didn't get open until 9 months later. It was like a pregnancy. My health started to fail. Back problems, all kinds of, everything was just in collapse. And I'm trying to keep this thing going. Already have spent thousands and thousands of dollars, with the guidance of experts, and everything was going wrong. So fast forward, a $135,000 investment escalated way beyond that. And in 2004, at the beginning of 2004, I said, that's it. I'm packing up and I'm driving back to Canada. So I closed it. And then, of course, I was faced with lawsuits. And I carried that debt. I moved beyond the lawsuits. I carried that debt for 4 years and doing anything I could to not declare bankruptcy, because there was so much shame attached to that. I could remember hearing things in my father's office as a kid, unkind, caustic remarks made about people who had done that. And I had done everything I could to avoid going there. And then I stepped into the Wealth Systems program, and all of a sudden the light came on. And it took me another 4 years before I literally decided, you better face the music. So I declared bankruptcy. So that was in 2008. That was 16 years ago. It's not an easy route to take. In the meantime, I had been present to other women who had already done them. And so it's been a process of coming to terms with my own credibility. And I would not have changed a thing. I don't know how I managed to do it, that I managed to stay in my own house. This house that my husband actually built by hand. Don't know how I managed to do that. I'm just grateful that it happened. It was a life-changing experience. And then when that happened in 2008, 4 years later, I was out for a walk and a van drove into me. It was a hit and run. So by rights, I probably shouldn't be even sitting here talking to you. I healed up much faster than they expected because of what I know. And I put it into practice. So there's hope out there for people. I think we have to eliminate our sense of fault and blame.
We need to eliminate our sense of fault and blame.
Well, it's so easy, I mean, if cancel clear, if somebody rear ends me in the car, I can take the route, it's their fault. Well, yeah, they hit me. But how long am I going to stay victim to they hit me, or what am I going to do about it? So I'm going to do things to make things right with myself so they can make things right with themselves.
But some people think if someone hit you and you're a victim, they should pay. They should go to jail. They should have to have their insurance pay. They should be charged with something.
Not saying that shouldn't happen. What I am saying is that while you're going through that at a very environmental, behavioral level of thinking while you're going through in that, because that's how our systems are actually set up. You can take a breath and you can actually ask yourself, how's this working for me? And what else is possible here?
How's
So
this
that,
working for me? That's a
and
good question to ask. How's this working
it's
for
a
me?
great question to ask.
So, you know, you've talked about this dark night of the soul, which sounds like it was a business um,
Oh,
catastrophe and bankruptcy.
there, there's been a lot, but that was the big one. And
Um,
that was at age 62, Brian.
so a
I'm
lot of people, I think that a lot of people have sort of a signature story that defines who they are, and that signature story often is a bad story. But because they got through it, it sort of it somehow changes them, transforms them, and defines who they are in the future. And so therefore, those bad things that happen in life are bad. And you don't want them to happen, but if you get through them, it ends up being something that's materially relevant and important to you and who you are, who you become, whether it's resilience or learning lessons or learning who was the true friend or the true partner and things like that. What do you think of that? Is this true? It's the old line about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I guess. But was this dark night of the soul important for you becoming who you are?
Oh, absolutely. Because what I did, and it's not up on my website right now, but what I did at the time that I was actually contemplating declaring bankruptcy was I wrote a 4,000 word blog, and using a template called the code model. And as I was writing it, I started looking at patterns and I look at everything as a metaphor in my life. The body's a metaphor for how I'm choosing to live. How I'm running my business is a metaphor for how I'm moving through my world. Because metaphor will take you into that field of looking down at the puzzle pieces. You can't do a puzzle when your eyes are at the level of the puzzle. You can only do the puzzle when you're standing above it. You can see all the pieces and where they need to fit. And so that's basically how the approach that I take with my life, along with that question, how is that working for me? And one other essential question, and that other essential question is this: how does the God force, this isn't about religion, this is a small g God, big F force, how does the God force that I am choose to live my life today? Just let that one sit in for a minute.
How does the God force choose to live my life today?
That
You
I
said
am.
you said
So
there were 6 stages of healing. What are the 6 stages of healing?
first of all, take a breath and exhale. Now, if you want to get into the allopathic, medicine part of that and why that's important, there's a chemistry involved, but just inhale and exhale and empty it out and soften the body. And you might notice that already you start to feel relaxed. So when you get triggered, just stay with that impulse and make a decision in the moment to stop, take a breath, exhale, soften the belly, soften your jaw. Your jaw is connected to something called the reticular activating system in your brain, and people tend to tighten down when they're in stress. Yep, just like that. So just take a breath and exhale and soften the body. And then,
So that's number one.
then actually follow that trigger, follow that impulse. Notice what's happening in the body. And keep breathing, keep softening the body. If there's a wave of tears, let it come. If there's a wave of expletives, let them come. If there's a wave of rage, let it come.
So don't control your anger, let it out.
Just let it out. You have choice about when and where, but let it out. But you won't find yourself going into big explosions if you stop and take a breath.
My
And
mom always used to say, count to 10. Or if you don't
she's
have
right.
something nice to say, don't say it. Or, remove yourself from the situation. And if you get triggered, go walk away and don't confront somebody.
She was absolutely right in terms of vote with your feet or count to 10. Maybe the thing that might have gotten missed was take a breath. However, if you're voting with your feet, very often when you're moving, you're taking that breath. The big thing is to soften the body so that you're putting your attention on the body and softening it, because it's literally designed to digest and metabolize the information that's triggering, the triggers. Think of a trigger as a stimulus response. It's an anchor. One of my teachers used to say everything in life is an anchor. You hear a good.
So number one is breathe and soften the body.
Right.
Number two is follow
Stay.
the trigger and
Yeah.
let it out.
Follow the
What's
trigger and let the body in its softening. You have to keep breathing through all of this. So you'll hear me talking to you, and all of a sudden you're going to see me let an exhale out. I'm doing that right now. Just like that. I hear yourself breathe. And then you got to be willing to actually stay in the tough conversation with yourself.
so
Because
is that number three?
well, it's breathe, follow the impulse, stay in the tough conversation with yourself, be willing to stand alone in that.
Tough conversation with yourself, be willing to stand alone. Okay.
Yeah. And in that willingness, you're either going to shape your world or you're not going to shape it. So when I do small group intensives. With COVID, I started doing them on Zoom, but I always did them in-house. And we so often do not say the things that when you're engaged with somebody else, Brian, you're maybe have a little more objectivity than they do for the situation that they're in. And often you can see things or hear things that if you were to just say it, trusting that you're a kind person and direct with grace, and you would just say it, the person would get their life back. But so often we're so afraid that we don't even hear ourselves in our own tonality. And we're so afraid that we're going to offend the other person. We say nothing. And
But I've often been told that's the right strategy, is that you don't give people solutions, just listen to them and understand them.
Not giving them a solution, actually taking the perspective, going to a higher order perspective and asking them a different question. So thanks for bringing that up, because nobody wants solutions. They just want to get their life back. So how you get your life back is going to be entirely different than how I get my life back. But the one common denominator is that no breath, no life. You got to breathe.
You got to breathe, no question.
Yeah.
So let's go through these six and maybe summarize them if we could. So number one is take a breath, deep breath. Number two, and soften the body. Number two is allow whatever that trigger is out so that you get a release.
Well, I would word it differently. Acknowledge that it's there. Because the minute you say let it out, people say, well, who let the dog out? Like, I don't know I don't know
Okay,
how to
okay. So acknowledge that anger or that trigger, that sadness, whatever it is there. Number three, you said, is have the tough conversation with yourself.
So when you keep trying to deny that you feel this way, whatever way you're feeling, or that you're feeling really hurt, or you're feeling betrayed, or you're feeling abandoned, and these subsequent feelings of anger and sadness come up, that's where the breathing takes over. It literally will digest and metabolize that information for you. Without the breathing, you're just going to continue to focus on your state, which is really about, I better not do that. It's not good to do that. It's not good to show my anger. It's not good to let anybody see me cry. It's not good to do any of that. You will hold it in and you literally collapse the body.
Right.
And the body, that's the start of illness right there.
Okay. I get you. So number one is take a breath and soften the body. Number two is acknowledge the anger, the sadness, the whatever. Number three is have that tough conversation with yourself. So you're really addressing whatever the issue is. What are 4, 5, and 6?
I think you've just about, 4, 5, and 6 is just basically, you got to stay in that conversation with you. You just mesh them all together, which is great, because that's how we do it. We just basically stop, take that breath, let that feeling move through the body, keep breathing while it's moving through the body, keep breathing while it's moving through the body. Maybe get up and vote with your feet. That's staying in the tough conversation with yourself. And continue to do that in concert with other people. Because here's the thing, you're modeling it. And as you model it, people start to go, oh, geez, maybe I can do that too. You don't have to teach them how to do it.
Sheila Winter Wallace, thank you so much for telling us how to deal with these dark nights of the soul and healing. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in 2 minutes with more of Sheila Winter Wallace. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Interesting conversation tonight about the power of context to heal your being, your body, and your business with Sheila Winter Wallace, who is a seasoned spiritual healing coach who empowers women to transcend their limitations, guiding them from victimhood to empowerment, pain to peace, and scarcity to abundance. We've talked about this healing and the 6 steps. What's this thing about context? Why do you think context is so critically important?
Well, I think it is so critically important because if I think I'm my body, that's the level that I'm going to be dealing with. If I know that I'm not my body, that I'm much more than that, it's going to raise my perspective. So I work with a set of visual cues that, visual templates that really educate women to how to think about who they are as human beings. And so most people just think the body is a mechanical device. So when I was in that accident and I was taken to the hospital and my leg was smashed, I was grateful that they had an orthopedic surgeon who could do a great job. He can do that. But what I did with myself was to move through all the momentary, I'm going to use the word trauma, that happened in the moment that was still playing out in my body, because there are consequences.
Right.
When you're, 4 years after declaring bankruptcy, rebuilding myself, wanting to work, actually requiring the income, and then all of a sudden you're flat out for 4 months. All these things go on. So I literally took those 6 steps, and that's what I utilize.
So, you mentioned that you're still in the house that your husband built. Lots of people will say that it's critical relationships, whether it's a spouse or a friend or a coach or a mentor or something like that, that gets you through the tough times. But you sound like you got through it all by yourself.
Oh, no. No, you don't. I think the life that I've lived, and I'm very thankful for it. First of all, I've been married almost 53 years.
Congratulations.
And a remarkable, remarkable experience. Not easy, We are not the same people that we were when we got married. I could not have had a better partner to navigate through all of the turmoils. He's had some big turmoils too. I've been there for him. I don't think you can ever do this alone. You have to be, there are certain strategies that we have lived by that have kept us in concert, conversation and dialogue every day with us. And we were both people who at points in our life worked shift work, and we didn't work the same shift. This is prior to smartphones and computers and everything else. We learned how to communicate with each other when I'd be leaving for work and he'd be coming home. And, you know, so he was working 12-hour shifts and I was working 8-hour shifts and stuff like that. So we've done that, and we have stayed in concert with friends who have gone the distance with us, and we've gone the distance with our friends. And I don't believe that any one of us, you know, I mean, we might not think, if you lived on a desert island by yourself, you probably wouldn't think you had any problems.
Yeah.
Your life would be boring as hell. You might really like to be in concert with some other people who literally, in the engagement with them, the things that you find uncomfortable are actually an invitation for you to actually become more. So that's kind of how I look at my life.
So let me, this coaching, this empowerment that you provide, does it work with men as well?
Oh, absolutely.
So let me ask you a question if I could.
Yeah.
I've had my own dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And someone who used to be really important to me, no longer is, but used to be really important to me, I think betrayed me. And things that I did for that individual's benefit, they used against me. And it's cost me dearly. And I'm hurt by it. I'm saddened by it. I'm mad about it. And I can't get over it because it's such a deep, deep scar. What do you do?
I would actually stay with you, and I would just encourage you to let yourself sit in an easy chair and put a sign on the door if you need privacy, or ask somebody to stay with you and not to interject, because it's going to bring up all their stuff too. You know, they watch you doing this, but to stay there and literally soften the body and continue to breathe. So here's one thing that I'm really glad you brought that up, Brian. I want to answer your question properly. Everything is a stimulus and a response. So something happens and there's a response. Something happens and a response. So that is what we call the formation of an anchor in the nervous system. When these things happen, so the hit and run, when these things happen, you're breathing 24/7. You don't even think about it. You're breathing. But that breath becomes the glue that holds the stimulus response together, so that you just keep repeating it. Every time you think about that person, or you maybe you have a memory of being with them, or you have a memory of some talk that you had, and it triggers something. And it's just a small thing, and maybe time heals all wounds, but it just keeps playing around and playing around and playing around. And that's what I mean about, you're literally staying in the tough conversation with yourself, only this time with the intention on softening the body, not on making the person bad. The behaviors may have been unconscionable. I'm not saying they weren't. I'm not willing to give my power up to consider, to keep, I just have to think of certain situations in my life. I just have to look at the government of Canada right now and I can build my ire up. But am I going to give up my power to some perspective that is going to keep me small? And here's the thing.
So you think dwelling in the victimhood or keeping the anger, you're giving your power up?
If you continue to do it and don't know what to do about it. But I've just provided for everybody listening, just stop, soften the belly, soften everything in your body, take a breath, vote with your feet, as your mother said, if you have to. Do whatever you have to keep your own dignity and your own grace and move on. And every time that you think about that person, stop, take another breath, just say to yourself, what else is possible here? And just
what else is possible here?
Yeah, and ask the question, don't go looking for the answer. Because the answer will drive you crazy. The question
How's this working for you? I like that question as well. We've got to take another break.
Yeah.
We're going to come back in 2 minutes with a few concluding comments from our guest, Sheila Winter Wallace. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Sheila Winter Wallace. She's a spiritual healing coach. She works primarily with women, helping them to transcend their limitations, guiding them from, as she's described, victimhood to empowerment, pain to peace, and scarcity to abundance. And she's taught me some things today as well. Sheila, I wonder, just to close off here, tell me, what are the core values and beliefs that you've got that sort of guide your coaching?
All right. So I'll go back to that statement, that question I asked before. How does the God force that I am choose to live my life today? Very succinctly, the presuppositions behind that is I'm a God force, small g God, big F force, that I am, that I choose, that I have a life, and that I live. And there is today. So here's the core value. I'm a God force. I see you and hear you through God force eyes. And I'm a signal expressing through tissue into a physical world. You are that too. I hold that as possible. If I don't see that, if I don't allow myself to see that through my own eyes, I can't see you that way. And if I can't see you that way, I have no right to be engaging with you. In terms of a coach. And that's just my own, it's something I had to grow into. I chose it because nothing else was working. I had a zillion modalities. I'm really good at them. And context changed everything. When you believe that you're more than your body, that you're not your body, you're okay. So you're not your body. Either am I. By nature, we are quantum fields of energy and information. And you are whole. That's a value. You are unique and you are essential to your world. I can say that easily with you. I've been invited to a podcast with you. I feel that a great honor. And you have created space for me. Space, movement, and flow is another thing. As a higher self, you are the field. You happen to express through a body that lets you know how you're doing. Thus the question, how is it working for me?
How's it working for you? I like that question.
And then you have your intellect, which gets to choose from what you know the best.
I like this God force concept that you have. I always, I'm religious. I go to church on a regular basis, but I've always liked Star Wars and the idea of the Force be with you because that really speaks to me about whether it's my religious God or just sort of Mother Nature or the universe or what. And that's that George Lucas film and whatever that concept that he had of the force be with you has really spoken to me. And I feel that force of goodness coming from you, Sheila, today. So thank you very much for your wisdom and for your calmness. And I can imagine if I was looking for some coaching, particularly if I was a female, you would be an incredible mentor, advocate, and coach. So thank you for sharing that. If people want to check you out and maybe hire you for your services, what's the website they should go to?
SheilaWinterWallace.com. Alternatively, bodygateways.com. One is pointed to the other, so it doesn't matter where you go, you'll get me.
Sheila Winter Waters, thank you. Wallace, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. This has been a calming and yet introspective hour. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brian.
That's our show for tonight, everybody. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 a.m. In Toronto. You can always stream me online, even from Chelsea, Quebec at www.saga960am.ca. I put up all of my videos and podcasts on social media right after the show goes live, as well as on social media. So they're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and on numerous different podcast servers, Speakeasy, SoundCloud, etc. So you can get me in lots of different ways and listen to fascinating people like Sheila. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody. And let's think about this God force concept. Let's think about taking a deep breath before we respond, softening the body, then thinking, I think that Sheila's right. You got to think through what that trigger was, the anger, the sadness, whatever. I still think my mom's comment about, walk away and as Sheila said, vote with your feet is very appropriate. Because I don't think that, letting the anger out right away, particularly in front of someone, is the right thing to do. But I understand Sheila's comment about if you're going to cry, you have all the right to cry. And then I think that the one thing we often don't do is have that hard conversation with yourself. Go deep. I like that. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.